Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Thirsty Professional. This is a place where we grab a bevy. Got my coffee, my zhuzhed up coffee today. We ditch the BS and we get real about careers, purpose, and fulfillment. I'm your host, Beth Ann Campbell. I'm a survivor of 23 years in corporate chaos, now working on my business ownership, my entrepreneurial badassery. I'm also author of the award-winning Where the Hell is My Bacon? Happy New Year, everybody! Woohoo, 2025. I just have a feeling this is going to be a great year. I don't know, I feel it in my blood somehow. By the way, speaking of bevies, my husband, my awesome husband, Sean, picked me up this amazing, sort of distressed, intentionally distressed Wonder Woman mug from the antique store yesterday. It's awesome. It's huge. I love big mugs because I drink a lot of coffee. So thank you, honey. All right. I hope you guys are having a great new year. If you're watching live, let me know you're here in the comments. Also, make sure, let me know if I'm coming through audio very well. I've had some audio challenges in the past. I think I've figured them out, but I always like to ask. So let me know if there's anything that's not coming through good for you. Let me know where you're from if I don't know already. And of course, what's your bevy today? What are you drinking? Some of you, I know it's an off week for a lot of people, so maybe people are drinking, I don't know, the hard stuff. If you're watching the replay, please give me a hashtag replay. And of course, make sure to let me know if you have any questions or feedback so I can address it on this live stream or a future episode. Corey Joe, thank you for coming on. Love the mug. I love big mugs. I love big mugs and I cannot lie. I know, me too, right? There is nothing worse than putting my coffee machine on the highest setting, which is 12 ounces, and that it only fills it like, I don't know, or it overflows, right? Because it's just not big enough. It just sucks. All right. It is awesome to be back after having some time off over the holidays. What about you? Are you getting back yet? Are you waiting till Monday? What's going on in your life? Hi, Doris. Doris, a new network person that I met. Good. Thank you for letting me know I'm coming through loud and clear. Love having new people, love meeting new people, love networking. I've had a lot of really good calls lately, and some great people. All right, so we're back. It's the holidays for those who celebrate. A lot of people are coming back, have been off. Those of you in the service industry, thank you for keeping the world running while the professionals and entrepreneurs take a little time. One thing that happens to us a lot, especially this time of year with the extended break, New Year, but even on just normal vacations throughout the year, we're not as diligent about taking care of ourselves and our schedule as we are during the regular days, right? And this can look like a lot of things. Like maybe your house is a little messier because you're busy. Many people, myself included, don't eat as healthy as we normally do. So, there's a lot of salty ham and pie, right? So you just, you just do what you do. There's nothing wrong about it. Your schedule's off. You have to maybe skip some workouts. Maybe you're drinking a little too much or maybe a lot more than normal. And you slow down in your business work, whether you're in a traditional job or an entrepreneur. Maybe you just aren't posting on social media for marketing or clients. Hello, Eileen. Thank you for coming. New Jersey. All right. And then so all of this stuff is going on when you're off, and then your inner voice sometimes kicks in, a lot of time kicks in. I know mine does, and she's not very nice. She's kind of like the wicked queen from Snow White. Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the biggest loser of them all because of all the things that I'm doing wrong or not doing, making us feel bad about that second piece of pie, the laundry's piling up, or making us feel like shit for not running our business full swing. I've heard a lot of that. The inner voice that we all have is representative of how we feel about ourselves. It is our self-image. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about self-image. All right, you may not believe this, but if you're having a chronic challenge of any kind in any area of your life, your self-image is almost guaranteed to be a factor. I would bet that it's a factor. And you will be amazed at how your life changes related to that when you focus on improving that self-image. Okay, so we have a lot to unpack here. And those of you who have been in my lives before, I always have a caveat. I am only just this year, really the last 6 months, scratching the surface with my own self-image journey. So I'm going to pass on my wisdom, but just know I don't have all of the answers yet. And I'm also still learning just like you are. So let's start with, what is self-image? So for those of you who are on live or in the replay, tell me in the comments, what do you think self-image is? When you hear the word self-image, what comes to your mind? What are some words that resonate with you when you think of self-image? What does that mean to you? Corey Joe says, the inner critic. Yep, we'll talk about some tips in a few minutes here, so thank you for that. Okay, so for me, just simply put, your self-image is a set of beliefs, very deeply ingrained beliefs that you have about yourself. It's the perception that you have about yourself in some area. If your inner voice is more of a critic for some things, you probably have in those areas a lower self-image. If you generally feel supportive of yourself, you may have a stronger self-image in certain areas. But make no mistake, everybody can improve how they look at themselves and therefore improve their lives. So our self-image is usually formed when we're very young. Not always, but it's usually formed when we're young, and it gets ingrained so deeply through the repetition of feedback that you get about something. And it can be positive or negative. Sometimes it can happen through a significant emotional event or a trauma, and that can happen anytime in your life. So using myself as an example, from a very young age, and I'm talking like I was not even 5 years old, I was probably 4.5, I believed that I was fat and ugly at that age. And I believed this because my older brother came home from school one day. He was 2 grades ahead of me. So he would have been maybe in first grade right now. So in the States, that's the second year of school, 7 years old. He came home and started calling me a bunch of lovely names that he had learned probably from some older kids, probably the 10 and 11-year-olds, because, they're assholes. I'm sorry, they are. I was when I was 10 or 11. Starting to get into asshole era of life. So he came home with these names like Fatty 2x4, Fat Slob, Bertha Butt and the Butthole Sisters, Fat Pig, you name it, I heard it. And those nicknames were repeated on almost daily for many months and really many years. And I believed them. By the time that I got to kindergarten, so my first year in school, I believed that I was fat and ugly. I remembered myself as fat and ugly. And I know this because about halfway through my kindergarten year, our class put on this pretend circus for the parents. You know, if you were in kindergarten, especially back in the 70s and 80s, this was standard. Some sort of little presentation for the parents. Ours was a circus, and we got assigned roles, and I was assigned to be an elephant in the circus. And I was 100% convinced that it was because I was fat. And I remember this as clearly as it happened yesterday. There were 3 of us, maybe 4. We had these big elephant masks made out of brown paper bags. And we walked around in a circle with a little routine. It was 1, 2, 3, and then we'd kick one leg out. And I had convinced myself that I didn't get assigned to be like a trapeze girl or a clown or maybe an acrobat because I was fat like an elephant. And for decades, I believed this was true. I even remembered myself at that age and all throughout my youth as a fat girl. But then I was probably in my probably early 40s when I was looking at some photos of myself, my kindergarten photo. So I would have been probably not quite 6 or maybe 6 years old. And it wasn't true. I was not fat at all. I was not ugly. I was a damn cute little girl. But I just believed it to be true. So this kind of birthed my self-image about my appearance. And it was rooted very, very deeply in the subconscious. And it's something that I work on to this very day. I'm sure I will work on it for probably the rest of my life. Let's take a quick look over at the comments here. Joris, Eileen, Corey Joe, Inner Critic. Yeah, right. We all, Corey Joe says, I'm going to show her a little comment here. We say things to ourselves that we would never say to our friends, and that's another clue when you are telling yourself things that you would be horrified if someone told you or if you told a friend. That's a pretty good indication of something going wrong. All right, Doris, what is self-image? A mental picture that I have of myself. That's exactly what I described as well too. So thank you for those comments, folks. Okay, so my self-image around being fat and ugly, deep-rooted. Conversely, I was praised a ton as a child for being smart, well-behaved, precocious. I learned how to read by the time I was 4 by myself, Electric Company and Sesame Street. Nobody taught me. I just learned. I was a near perfect student. I liked school. I didn't misbehave. I wasn't a dick. I had teachers asking me how to spell things. So, I grew up being confident in my intelligence, my humor, my ability to speak up and speak out and kind of work through fear and discomfort. And I wasn't any different from any of my classmates or any of my siblings. I just believed that I was smart and funny and confident. So I became that, and it just was not never an issue. That might not be true for other people, right? There are many, many things beyond appearance that impact our self-image. So my self-image around those things like intelligence and confidence is pretty healthy these days. So for those of you who are out there, hi Scott, thanks for joining. Relatable. I'm not sure what was relatable, but I think we all can relate to a lot of this stuff. So for those of you who are out there listening, can you think of something that you're challenged with today that might have some deep roots in your childhood or maybe some trauma? Just think about it. Sometimes it takes a bit to. I didn't do this overnight. You have to really think about where your inner voice is coming in and where you're maybe challenged in some area of your life, and where that might be where your self-image isn't the greatest. So just think about where that might be. Okay, so most of us are aware of things like on the surface, like self-worth, our value. We talked about our inner voice, and these are all related to that image of ourself, that mental image, and that mental picture, as Dora says, that we hold inside of ourselves. But do we really understand how instrumental our self-image is in everything we do? It drives so much of what we do and how we make decisions and the actions that we take or don't take, how we look, how we interact with people. If you're not getting the results you want in some area of your life, the first place that I would look is your self-image. So, for example, how many of you out there have had your inner self, your inner voice, criticize you for doing something wrong or badly or screwing up? For me, it's like, oh, you had that second piece of pie or even a piece of pie, right? Think about those moments when you beat yourself up the most. That is probably where you need to improve your self-image. I know that is true for me. If you've hated yourself for something, that's a self-image issue. And whether you want to believe it or not, that's impacting what you do today. Even if this is rooted way back, even if you're aware of it, if you have to do the work, you have to work on that. So my negative self-image of being a fat slob absolutely has impacted the decisions I make even today. Work, career, both in my traditional job and in my current, business owner pursuits. Decisions I've made about vacations and activities and hobbies and interaction. And yours does too. Again, you might not believe it, but it does. Because negative self-image is so deeply planted, it's mostly subconscious, and left to its own devices, it's going to drive your actions in the way it sees itself. It's just very automatic. It's kind of like cruise control in your car. So, if you go too fast, those of you who are familiar with cruise control, if you go too fast, it corrects your speed so your car slows down and maintains an average speed. And if you're like going uphill, it's going to add more gas so that you maintain that speed and you don't slow down, which is great in a car. But in your self-image, whether it's positive or negative, right? Because it can be positive. That's your subconscious cruise control. It drives what you do, how you act, who you are, how you look, everything. And if you stray from that, you start losing weight, for me, or If you're someone who thought that they thinks that they're stupid, if you start, being a little bit more bold and asking questions and being, showing your intelligence, it's going to put you right back on the path. If you don't do the work, you're always going to go back to the path of your deep-rooted beliefs, whether you like it or not, if you do not do the work, right? So again, think about where you've struggled. When does that inner critic get the loudest and the meanest? And that's the place to start. Self-image praise in school. Yeah. Yeah, it's just amazing when you really start to think about your child, because that's usually, again, trauma can and emotional events can certainly cause and contribute, but for a lot of it's just this childhood stuff that gets repeated, made fun of, or in some cases, like I described, not being made fun of or being praised, which in itself can also be can cause challenges too, but most of the time it is that childhood, and God knows that school is probably the worst. We don't really want to admit that the people that have been the closest to us, that love the most, have been the ones that maybe contributed, right? Even if they didn't intend to. My brother was 7 years old. I don't blame him. I love him. He's passed away, but but that's just how it is. Okay, so the good news is you can change your self-image. You can change those deep-rooted beliefs. First thing is to identify, where do you need to work on your self-image? And as we've said, you work on that by thinking about where you're not getting results that you want chronically and consistently, or where is your inner critic off the rails? And then you can work on improving it. Wonder Woman. So one of the best ways that you can improve your self-image is to learn to love yourself unconditionally. This was very much a game changer for me. By the way, all of these things that I learned about, that I'm going to talk about in self-image, or most of them, I didn't make these up. These all come from a program that I'm enrolled in called Thinking into Results. It's out of the Proctor Gallagher Institute, and it's just a very comprehensive mindset program. And so all of this came there. This is stuff that you can learn out there and dive much more deeply into. But I wanted to give credit to the Thinking into Results business mentorship program and the mentor. Her name is Eva Paycheck. Anybody interested in taking a deeper dive into your mindset work, send me a DM or throw me a comment, and I will point you in the right direction, or we can have a call and I'll tell you about my experience. So first thing, self-image. Learn to love yourself unconditionally. And this is probably the biggest place where that inner voice is very revealing. When you beat yourself up for not doing something the right way, having that extra piece of pie, the guilt starts to build, the imposter syndrome. That is a sure sign that you do not love yourself unconditionally. You cannot manifest positive change in your life if you don't love yourself no matter what. I really believe this. I believe it with all my heart. If I don't love myself the way I am now, I'm not in the right vibration to attract what I want to be and the person that I want to be. Now, that doesn't mean that we can't or shouldn't encourage ourselves to be better, to eat better, exercise, read more, take more chances, apply for that job, whatever. But you still love yourself just the same when you don't do those things, when you fail. If you don't, then you don't love yourself unconditionally. So no matter what the scale says, no matter how many chances that I back away from, no matter how many slices of cake I eat, especially if my sister made it and it's homemade cake with homemade buttercream frosting, no matter how many days I don't go to the gym, I try to love myself the same, without condition and without judgment. Sometimes it's hard. A lot of times it's hard and it takes time, but it absolutely helps. All right, I'm going to take a quick jump over here. Eileen, self-image kept me from speaking up at work. That's very common, Eileen. Yeah, because of, whatever it was in your paradigm, in your past. A very, very, very common thing. I need an inner critic. Eileen says, I need an inner critic to cut down on all the junk I eat and exercise. I don't know if I would agree with that, Eileen. I don't know that you need an inner critic. I would argue that your inner critic probably does more harm than good. I think there are other things. I mean, it's complicated, right? Self-image isn't the only thing that I work on with mindset. It's just one big piece of it. But you might try just not criticizing yourself and learning to love yourself unconditionally and using some of the techniques that I'm about to talk about to help with that. Because maybe you're the unicorn, but for me and most people I know, the inner critic does more harm than good with trying to better ourselves. Okay, so learning to love yourself unconditionally, there are a lot of other techniques that can help improve your perception of yourself and help you love yourself fully. And these are just a few that I use. And again, I'm happy to point you in a direction of learning more. The first thing is I don't really call it, this program calls it mirror work, right? I talk to myself in the mirror every single day. I talk to my inner self, my inner child. Sometimes I talk to my past selves. Sometimes I talk to my future selves. We talk about what's gone well lately, what we want to do better, what we want to go well in the future. Sometimes we rewrite things. Sometimes we just explore. And I make sure that she knows no matter what, I love her unconditionally. Right. So she is, we compliment, but the big crux of it is I make sure I look myself in the eye, looking in the mirror. I do this when I'm before I'm putting my makeup on, and I take about 5 minutes and we just talk. It's like I'm talking to a part of myself, and making sure that she knows that I love her no matter what. So another thing I do is I rewrite situations that have contributed to my self-image gaps in my head. And by the way, this if you're familiar with The Secret or Law of Attraction, this is something that they talked about here, is rewriting things that didn't go as well as you wanted them to go, because imagining creates reality, right? Imagining, if you believe it and you see it in your head, and if you believe it and you think it and you have emotion about it, it has to come true. It will come true. It will manifest, right? So I do this with my past. I change the memory. I visualize to change the outcome. So as an example, if I'm thinking about my brother coming home from school and calling me names, I rewrite that in my head. I replay it in my head. He doesn't call me fat names. Maybe he jumps off the bus and gives me a hug and says I'm his favorite sister, which I'm everybody's favorite sister. Just kidding, Allie and Sue, my two other sisters who are awesome. Or maybe we, run inside and watch Sesame Street together, something like that. But I replay that, I rewrite it in my head. And I do this with manifestation stuff too. During the day, maybe I did have the second piece of pie and I'm not feeling good about it. Okay, just think about if I hadn't taken that piece of pie, and still loving myself regardless. All right, 3, forgiveness. Big one. Actively forgive those who have wronged you, whether they intended it or not. My uncle just published a book earlier this year. He suffered horrible abuse at the hands of my grandparents, and he had to go through this letting go forgiveness exercise that was very helpful, right? The people who contributed to your negative self-image need to be forgiven. I've forgiven my brother. I mean, he was 7. I can't really hold him accountable. Although his teasing did go on for quite a bit into his teens, but he was still a child. He didn't know what he was doing. But regardless, I forgive him. I know he didn't intend to cause any issues. I forgive him. I wrote a letter expressing my forgiveness. You might need to forgive yourself for judging yourself, for believing things that you know are not true. I had to forgive myself. I had to write myself a letter to forgive myself for things like believing for all of these decades that I was unworthy and ugly, right? Forgiveness does not mean you absolve someone of their sins. Not at all. You're really just letting go. You're taking your power back and you're letting go of that negative energy. You're just deciding this no longer has hold over me. And you're letting go of that energy for the people who wronged you, or those situations, traumatic situations, toxic work conditions that stuck with you. So you're not absolving. It's not absolution. Okay. Number 4, you can create your new identity, who you want to be, right? The opposite of what your self-image issue tells you that you are, and you be that person. Write down the person who you want to be as if you're already that person. And then make decisions and take action as if you've already achieved your new you. This is basic manifestation, right? Living from the end. Act like somebody who's not afraid to fail or be uncomfortable. Act like someone who's the smartest person in the world. Ask that dumb question. Eileen, act like you are somebody who, what did you say about speaking up at work? Act like you're just do it. Just act like you are that person who is confident enough to speak up in whatever situation. Number 5, gratitude. Gratitude is the panacea for most of our mindset problems. It really does help with just about everything. So practicing gratitude for what you have, but also practicing gratitude for things that you are struggling with as if they're already overcome. Again, it's similar to living from the end, creating that identity, being that end person, that new identity, but adding gratitude. So feeling gratitude for the characteristics of your new identity, even if those traits are not yet reality, just pretend they are and be thankful for them. I'm so grateful that I can stand up in that meeting and speak in front of the executives like a pro. 6, another technique. Find people who embody what you need to work on or what you want to work on, and then imitate them. Study them, do what they do. Maybe you're somebody who's kind of aloof and standoffish. What did my mom used to call me? Non-committal. She used to call me because I was moody. That was her word for moody. So maybe you're somebody who is non-committal and moody because maybe your spark was put out. You had like really serious, strict parents. Well, be like Taylor Swift. She doesn't give a fuck. She just does what she does. And I know I'm not going to talk about Taylor Swift every episode. I swear, because I love her so much. I just love the way that she lives her life freely and openly, being kind and loving and embracing of other people. So, find somebody like that emulates, that embodies what you want to be in your new identity. So some of these techniques, I'm not going to kid you, they can be very awkward. Most self-image work is. You might even be cynical about it. I absolutely was. When I started doing self-image work, I kind of did it for a while and I just thought, oh, this is weird. But it's uncomfortable to face your demons. Give it a try. It really does work. I love it now. I do it all the time, every single day. It really does work, and you will get used to it. It's just like anything that's different and uncomfortable. And remember, discomfort is not your enemy. Discomfort is the gateway to growth. Change is uncomfortable. It's sort of inherent. Change is just, you could exchange change and discomfort. So if you want to change for the long term, you have to work through that discomfort. Okay, so I'm going to check in here. Stella Scott is going to be a guest on my show. Stella Scott says the common attitude towards the inner critic needs to change. I have a lot to say about that concept, going against the grain with unexpected perspectives as so often. Well, I look forward, Stella, when you're my guest in the not too distant future. I don't remember the exact date, but I think it's in January. We will talk about that. I would love to talk about that with you. You know what? We all need to explore all aspects of things like our inner critic. I have changed my thoughts about inner critic, especially since learning about self-image. I really kind of started off with, I named her Liz, and I named her Liz because sometimes I just wanted to tell her to shut the fuck up. And, but I've learned that, especially with this self-image exploration, that my inner critic is really coming from a place that she can't really help coming from. It's not helpful a lot, but sometimes I have to step back and go, okay, she's not just being a total bitch. She really is coming from a place of wanting to protect me based on this, a very long-term early childhood repetitive belief that got ingrained. So Corey Joe, back in the day, public weighing in gym class, announcing weights like an auction house. If I could go back to the 70s and 80s and remove one thing from school, I would remove the public weighing in gym class. Funny story. This absolutely, for the youngins out there, or maybe if you were in a school that didn't do this, but this absolutely happened. Corey Joe and I are both from Michigan. It absolutely happened, certainly in Michigan schools, where you would get weighed in front of everybody. And I do remember one time being in the line, right? And so it was my turn. So you walk up and it's just not far enough to not catch, some of the words. Of course, they can't see the scale, but it's just, you got the gym teacher there. In our case, it was the gym teacher. And she tried to, under her breath, state my weight. And so she wrote it down, right? Of course, it's just humiliating and horrifying. And I was mortified. And I walked back and there was this kid, Steve Smith, and who's a local kid. He lived pretty close to us. He was friends with my younger brother. And he said, he repeated the number. He goes, "Did she say, whatever, 1,000 pounds?" And I was like, "No." But of course I was mortified because he heard it. And so, yeah, please, if there was anything that we could take back from the 80s, it would be public weighing. Okay. All right. So checking in again, think about where the areas for your self-image, where they might need some attention. Where in your life are you tired of beating yourself up? Where are you tired of asking yourself, why is this so hard? Why can't I do this? That's what I, did with, this is why I explored the things around my appearance, because I said, why am I so successful everywhere else, but this one thing I still am challenged with? I know I could write a fucking book about nutrition and exercise, but it wasn't until I really started doing the mindset work that it really started to hit me where I needed to do the work, right? Okay. All right. Let me just double check here and see if we have any more comments. Thank you so much for showing up today, all of you. I really so appreciate the support. January 31st, Stella has reminded me will be, I've got such a great guest lineup. By the way, next week, I am kicking off. This is really just the ramping up, right? My vision for this live was always to have guests, right? So next week, January 10th, I start, and I'm not going to be solo for a long time. I'm booked up through March, and I've got more people on this call that I haven't even yet reached out to about booking because I've just been holidays and stuff. Next week, January 10th, I am having my first guest, Heidi Medina. You heard me talk about her on here before. She's a social media marketing strategist, a business coach, an amazing accountability partner, somebody with a ton of wisdom and expertise to pass on around her journey and her passions, which is what this series is all about. So looking forward to having her on. So, and then again, some of folks that are on this call are gonna be on the show a little bit later this year. I've posted out on LinkedIn the lineup. Stella, Heidi, just so many people, and so many more, and I'm all over the moon because that's just the gravy. That's what I really want. I love the interaction and I love getting the different perspectives. So, looking forward to having Stella next week. We're kicking off with Heidi. So thank you all so much for joining today. If you have any final comments, let me know. I so appreciate you. If you're watching on LinkedIn and you're not already connected, please do so. If you're on YouTube, please like and subscribe. It really does help. If you have any questions or feedback, leave them in the comments or DM me if you can. I know not everybody can do if you're not connected, but get connected and then you can DM me. And although I think LinkedIn limits the number of DMs for people if you don't have the paid. But anyway, make sure you get a copy of my award-winning book, Where the Hell is My Bacon, for yourself or anybody you know who's tired of the rat race, especially the corporate rat race, and who loves bacon. So, and congratulate yourself for getting real about your career, your purpose, and your fulfillment. Miss Hattie Arbuckle, who is unadorned today, we bid you farewell. Happy New Year. Make 2025 the greatest. And if I can help, let me know. See you guys later. Have a great weekend and take it easy.